Beware, there will be spoilers. But for those who wish to brave the juiciest of knowledge that Sandman Season 2's post-credits scene has to offer, welcome, my friends, for you are the mighty ones. Now, Sandman Season 2 ends with Morpheus, aka Sandman, aka Dream of the Endless, aka Lord Sharper's death. Whatever you want to call him, he ends up becoming a star in the vast expanse of the universe. The kindly ones, who shall rightly be called the Furies, were the real orchestrators of this death, because they are the goddesses of vengeance. And when Morpheus euthanized Orpheus, his son, he spilt family blood, and according to divine law, Morpheus had to go. In the aftermath of it all, we're taken to the post-credit scene where we see the Maiden, the Mother, and the Crone back at their place discussing what they achieved from the ordeal. They also talk about Lyta and how she made her bed. They also open a fortune cookie, which reads, "Flowers gathered in the morning, afternoon they blossom on, still are withered by evening, you can be me when I'm gone." None of them knows what it means, and so they toss this piece of paper away and continue winding on the thread of fate. But what the kindly ones may not know, we do, and that's what we're here to find out, the true meaning behind that strange poem. But before I begin, please consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons. Those 2 small clicks from you will help us tremendously in bringing you more of these marvelous videos. Winding Sheets. So, after Morpheus' funeral, Daniel Hall played with a vampire named Louis de Pointe du Lac, who also got Daenerys the Iron Throne. Well, almost. So yeah, he's the new Dream of the Endless. He was a child yesterday, but the kind of dreams today, and is yet to learn a lot about his new job, home, and life. But the good part is that he has a welcoming new family, one that values Dream. Then the credits roll up, only to be stopped by the kindly ones lighting a candle. The Maiden asks, "So it's finished?" In the scene, she's referring to the knitting that the mother was doing throughout the season. However, in reality, the Maiden was actually talking about the ordeals that had transpired recently. When the mother says it was, in fact, finished, the Maiden asks another question, and she goes, "Well, what did we make? What was it in the end?" You will notice here that the Maiden and the mother are not entirely thrilled about being the ones behind sending Morpheus to the other realm. Even though he was guided by his sister, Death, they even show a degree of grief, and maybe even regret what they had to do, simply because the law is the law. Anyway, the mother answers the Maiden's questions, that the results this time were nothing different from the previous times. She says, like always, in the end, it was a handful of yarn and a few loose ends. The Crone then adds, no matter how much weaving and knitting and stitching you do, if you keep going long enough, you will always end up with a winding sheet. Now, you know what a winding sheet is, right? Well, that's the term one uses for a shroud, a sheet in which a corpse is wrapped for burial. What the Crone wants to say here is that it always ends in death, someone's death. During the course of the second part of the second season, and even in the comics, there were several deaths. But if I talk about the dreaming, the Furies, with a little help from Lyta Hall, killed Fiddler's Green, Merwin, and even Abel. Although Abel and Merwin were brought back by the new Dream of the Endless, Fiddler's Green wanted to remain dead, his story being complete and meaningful that way. And of course, there was Morpheus, so all their machinations and tweakings led to more and more winding sheets.
Are you watching?
Eat that bed you made. So it wasn't just death, there were also losses and suffering. I'll explain. So the Crone next talks about what she told Hippolyta Hall. You've made your bed and now you must eat it. I think she meant lie in it, but the point remains the same. Here, the Crone was essentially pointing out that every single person who's a part of this mess had to bear the consequences of their actions. Destiny would be pleased. Yes, Morpheus had to go because he spilled family blood, no matter the reason. But Hippolyta also, as the Crone says, made her bed when she blamed Morpheus and only Morpheus for apparently abducting and then killing her son. I mean, she was told at several occasions, directly and indirectly, that Morpheus had nothing to do with the kidnapping, yet she directed all her rage and anger towards the Dream King, and ignored the true kidnappers. In fact, poor Mrs. Shore also had to lose her life because Lyta simply would not see reason, or to actually prove that her son had been burnt to death. If only she saw things clearly, or asked the right questions, she would still have Daniel with her, in his human form that is. I mean, his humanity was burned down in the fire that Loki threw him in, right? Had Lyta been a bit more practical and pragmatic, that would not have happened, and she would have had her son with her for a few more years. Unfortunately, she allowed Loki and Puck to manipulate her, and she even became a pawn in the schemes of the kindly ones, who simply used her in their own twisted games. She was nothing more than a means to an end, and in the process, she lost her dear son. He lives and breathes, but as an immortal, and the only way she can see him now is through her dreams, or if he chooses to visit her in the waking. But that seems unlikely anytime soon. She desired revenge so badly that she lost the one thing she was trying to avenge. And that's the bed she must eat, the bed of her own making. And in hindsight, the only consolation that Lyta can possibly have is the new Dream and her former son have not entirely forgotten her. In fact, in the comic, more specifically the 72nd issue of the Sandman comic, Lyta thinks Dream will exact his revenge for killing him, but instead he embraces her, puts his mark on her, and asks her to start a new life. With his mark, no one will dare hurt her. So yeah, that was a bittersweet end to her arc, and now let's get to the most confusing part of the post-credit scene. The prophecy in the fortune cookie speaks of the cyclical nature of the world. The kindly ones sit with their tea, working through a Florentine, a dry ship's biscuit, and a fortune cookie. The cookie, as always, carries a message, but this time it's not a warning about kings who would lose their kingdoms or wars that would reshape hell and earth. Instead, it talks about flowers blooming in the morning and wilting by night. We only see the second part in the show, while the Sandman Comics Volume 9, The Kindly Ones, has the whole thing. In fact, I'll read it out to you. All around me darkness gathers. Fading is the sun that shone. We must speak of other matters. You can be me when I'm gone. Flowers gathered in the morning. Afternoon they blossom on. Still are withered in the evening. You can be me when I'm gone. The kindly ones brush it off. They call it a badly written poem and move on. But that's not the same as ignoring it. If anything, their casual tone hides the fact that they understand it all too well. They are the ancient fates, after all. And while they may toss away the fortune like a bad joke, the meaning sticks. Let's break it down. The poem starts with darkness closing in. Someone sees their end approaching and tries to leave something behind. A message, a warning, a nudge to whoever's next in line. That "you can be me when I'm gone" bit hits you right where it should, if you're thinking about Morpheus. Because even though he's a godlike being, he knows what's coming. He knows he's not meant to last forever. When Daniel was born, Morpheus could already see the writing on the wall. He didn't know when or how, but he knew this kid was going to inherit the dreaming. What he didn't expect was how fast it would all unravel. He didn't get to sit Daniel down or prepare him for the cosmic job interview. Morpheus faded out of the picture before he had the chance. The second half of the poem spells it out even more clearly. Everything dies. Flowers bloom, and then they don't. And it doesn't matter how beautiful or powerful or ancient you are. That same rule applies. In the Sandman, it doesn't stop at humans or animals, it touches the endless too. That's the point. Even entities like dream, despair, and delirium aren't above change, decay, or rebirth. And that last one's interesting. Delirium wasn't always delirium. She used to be delight. That's not evolution, that's transformation. Or maybe transition into something worse. Much like a child transitions into an adult and then into an old person, only to wither and die. In fact, it reminds me of one of Shakespeare's As You Like It, which reads, "All the world's a stage, and all the men and women merely players. They have their exits and their entrances, and one man in his time plays many parts." So these lines in the fortune cookie, they both serve as a reminder that nothing stays still in this world, not even the ones who claim dominion over abstract concepts. Let's take despair for instance. She says there was a despair before her, one lost to time. No one even remembers her name. That's the fate of the endless. You take up the title, carry the mantle, but eventually you hand it off, or drop it altogether, and someone else steps in. This entire structure, that is the poem, the cookie, the disinterest of the Furies, it's all about the cycle. Something ends, something else begins. Even Daniel, new and glowing white in his dream armor, won't be the last. His reign will end. Someone else will take the helm, or the role itself might change, morph into something unrecognizable. It's happened before, it'll happen again. The kindly ones, split into the maiden, the mother, and the crone, embody the idea of transition. They live in stages. They don't cling to permanence because they are the cycle. Life, power, identity, it all moves forward whether you're ready or not. So what looks like a half-hearted poem in a throwaway cookie is actually one of the most honest lines in the Sandman. And that's why they don't explain it, because they don't need to. They've lived it longer than anyone. That was all in this one, folks, but that's not all for Marvelous videos. If you like this one, just go to the channel's homepage and search Sandman. You'll find plenty of other great videos, starting from the entire life of Morpheus and all his endless siblings, to great insightful stuff on the kindly ones and more. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one and be safe. Thanks, everyone.